Hey, everybody, welcome into another episode of Drafting Lessons, the DLF TV show where I grab a guest every single week and we run through a Dynasty startup or a Dynasty rookie mock that we've been doing as of late as the NFL draft comes around the corner. I've done a couple of rookie mocks the past few weeks. The first one was with Jesse Reeves, Ray Garvin, and then Garrett Price. And today I am joined by the great Nick Whalen, Cortland Truther here to run through two more 4-round rookie mock drafts. So how's it going, Nick?
It's going well, man. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I had to have a little, one of the guys there I'm tied with. I had to put that as my title just, in case he's watching.
I'm sure he's, because you said he follows you on.
Right. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. I'm pretty lucky there. So maybe I'll promote it and we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to let him know. But yeah, so thank you for coming on and joining me. We're going to be running through two 4-round rookie mocks here. And the first one will be out of the 106 position, and then the second one will be out of the 112. So a couple different player sets there that we're going to be talking about for both of those mocks. But if you're all set, we can just get right into it.
Yeah, so are we, just real quick to ask a question, is this going to be super flex or not?
Oh, no, this is just regular one quarterback.
Okay.
I would just assume PPR. I don't know if that matters. But just, one quarterback, nothing, no premiums, nothing like that, just a standard everything.
Okay, sure. Yeah, let's do it. This will be fun.
All righty.
The best part.
Let's do it. Alrighty, Nick, we're looking good here. We're up at the 106 right now. The first 5 picks were Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, and J.K. Dobbins. So we're looking now at players like Cam Akers, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Ruggs, Jefferson, Rager, and Higgins are the 4 best available wide receivers according to this. So what are we looking at here at the 106, Nick?
Yeah, so I'm actually in a startup, a rookie draft right now, and I had the 107. So the guy that I took there is who I'm going to take here, and it's going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I'm a big fan of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I know that some people are worried about his size. Some people are worried about his speed, but he checks every box besides those. And I don't know how often a player just has to run a straight 40-yard dash because he does everything else, I think, so well that his floor, it's tough for me to envision him not hitting and being fantasy relevant. And you're a statistics guy. You know that receptions count more than carries do. He's a great pass catcher. And I think he has the most versatility in terms of NFL scheme. So, we're drafting now without knowing a team in terms of scheme and offensive line play because he has such great lateral agility, balance. He has good vision. He toys with defenders. Really, I think he could break a tackle in a phone booth. Like, it's ridiculous. So having a guy with that much, I think, floor, especially at the running back position that can get, receptions as well, I think it makes it a pretty safe pick for me there. That's why I took him at 107. I was jacked in my other league, and now I get him here at 106.
All righty. Yeah. Hey, I really like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I like the, obviously the pass catching upside. And I think that he's going to have nice draft capital in the sense that he's going to have a nice and a favorable landing spot. He's not going to be stuck on a team that kind of like sucks or might not, might have to just pound the rock with him to make up for the draft capital that they use. But I think he's going to have really nice draft capital. And I really would have loved to see him in Atlanta. I still do. The Todd Gurley signing kind of put a wrench in that, at least for year one. But my biggest question to you here is, you took Edwards-Helaire, but you passed up on Cam Akers, who I think is the consensus RB4 in this class, to Edwards-Helaire's RB5. So what was the process behind that decision?
Well, I'll just let you know that Cam Akers isn't in my top 5 running backs in this class. And it's sad because Cam Akers was my number 1 running back coming out of high school. The Dev report that I do. I was a fan. He was explosive. And again, he was a quarterback, kind of a running quarterback in high school. You could see the natural ability, but he never developed into a running back. And I think that's the biggest difference that I see when I watch film versus when you look at numbers, you look at 40 timer. Because you see the body. He's got a great build. You see the athleticism when he did at the combine or on highlight tapes. But in terms of anticipating where linebackers and holes opening up, his approach to the line of scrimmage, balance, cutting ability, wasted steps, all that kind of stuff, like the things that when you watch like Arian Foster back in the day, right? Arian Foster was so sound in setting up and deceiving defenses to cut back or make yards that it didn't matter that his 40 time was a 4.6 something, you know. Akers is the opposite of that, where he's still this guy trying to learn how to play running back, but he has the other things. I mean, and he can catch the ball too, the things that appeal to people. But when you peel back all of the layers, you're like, well, is he? I mean, he could learn the footwork, learn the vision, learn anticipating, all that kind of stuff. But I don't see it, and I don't want to risk that at this point. And to me, actually, I posted this as a question today on Twitter. I didn't really say who. People thought I meant Chenault. Akers is the other one, where how often do these guys that don't have the technical skills or the techniques learn them all? We saw Christine Michael not do it. We saw, Tavon Austin, all these guys where they're like, okay, it's a good athlete, Corey Coleman, they'll figure it out. And they don't. Some do.
Right.
Tyreek Hill did. I feel like Akers is still there where, and again, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but like people have him up there and like, he could be the best back in this class. He could be elite. He could. But I think that's like the 5 percentile chance of that happening. I think that him being an RB3 is a much higher chance.
Yeah, that's a fantastic argument. I never really thought of it that way, then in the sense that, the technicality of his skill set isn't there. And yeah, I agree that it's much harder to learn in the NFL, those technical skill sets, if you don't have them already. But I mean, if he does, he has an amazing ceiling, but is that worth it at the, at the mid first right there, especially with a guy that you believe in, like Edwards-Helaire, who, like you said, you don't see how he almost doesn't, have provide value and offers a really nice safety net for you, especially with the receiving workload too. So yeah, so I'm in on that one. I like that pick. I like the justification there. And we are back up at 206 here. The rest of the first round, all wide receivers after Cam Akers went at the 107, Higgins, Rager, Mims, Jefferson, and Ruggs. And then Brian Edwards went at the top of the second, Zach Moss, Laviska Shenault, A.J. Dillon, and then Brandon Ayuk. So we're looking now 206. All the quarterbacks are still there. Michael Pittman, Keyshawn Vaughn, KJ Hamler, Tyler Johnson, Eno Benjamin, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Antonio Gibson, AGG, Anthony McFarland. I can keep scrolling down unless I got your guy.
I'm between two right now. So maybe I can just talk about both. Who knows if I'll get him in the other rookie draft that we do or not. But right now, when I look at this, so, this is without having a team. I rarely take a quarterback unless it's super flex. I mean, you got to be, for me, it's a third round thing where the value kind of drops off. And it's like, well, when you start one quarterback, to me, you're battling point differentials. You draft this quarterback and you're assuming that he's going to be in the top 12 fantasy producers. If actually, you probably shouldn't draft him unless they're going to be in the top 10 or top 8, because there's such a big gap of guys you could trade for that it's not really worth it for you to spend this mid-second round pick on a wide receiver, or I'm sorry, on a quarterback. Same thing with tight end, because this class isn't great at tight end and you're hoping that guy's a top 8 tight end. If they're not, then you could just trade for one. I mean, heck, I think Jason Witten was a tight end one this year. Like somehow, like I don't know how, but he was like, okay, So, the point differentials don't benefit you there. So to me, I think it's running back and wide receiver. And right now I'm battling Keyshawn Vaughn and Michael Pittman are my two guys that I like here. I actually like, and we talked about Cam Akers. I don't like him. I have Keyshawn Vaughn ahead of Cam Akers in my rankings. So he would be my RB5. And I like Pittman a lot too. I'm probably going to go with Michael Pittman here. We'll see if Vaughn could fall. Who knows? But Pittman is a very interesting guy because he redshirted, and when he came out, I was a big fan of him. Had him probably up too high. Keyshawn Vaughn went. And then it didn't happen. He's been banged up and injured quite a bit at USC. But what he does have, again, he's Michael Pittman's son. He has size for days. And you could see that out of high school. But one of the things I like the most with when you see big receivers is there's not a lot of effort there sometimes. They kind of rely on like, I'm just bigger than you. I can out muscle and, jump ball and all this kind of stuff. But after he catches the football, he's like a running back and he's like taking off. Think of early career Brandon Marshall. That's why I like Sutton so much. These guys, they have this flexibility to their game where they don't act like they're a 6'4" player. And he has that. But then finally this last year, he had over 100 receptions. He kind of put it all together. He can win, being physical, jump balls after the reception. Now, again, does he have all of the technical traits? He's a little bit more of an athlete right now. He doesn't have all the technical traits like a Mims or a Higgins or some of those other bigger guys. But I think he could get there. And he's one of those guys at this point in the second round, you would gamble that he could take that shot where he could be like a wide receiver too, because he does have the other skills already.
Pittman is an interesting player to me in this class because I feel like he has a wide range of where he's going to go in not only the NFL draft, but also then, subsequently rookie drafts, going off of his draft capital. But he's a player that I think he's kind of flying under the radar in this wide receiver class. And I think that's because of how deep it is, especially when you talk about all the guys who went at the big end of this first round right here. And then also Lamb and Judy and Laviska's in there, Brian Edwards, and you got KJ Hamler and Tyler Johnson and, just a whole array of all these wide receivers in this class that Pittman, is kind of just there. And, nobody really I've seen like loves him. Nobody like hates him. He's just there. And, I also, he was a guy that I was trying to pay attention to, from his freshman year at USC all the way up until last year. And, as I told you before, my ex-boss was a huge USC fan. So obviously I heard a lot of Michael Pittman over the past few years from him. And, to me, and I guess, my question to you is, where do you see Pittman landing in the NFL that would make him more valuable than what he is right now? And do you think that it's going to be realistic that he goes in maybe like the second round, or is there like a team on late day 2 or early day 3 that he's going to be able to sustain the value that he has right now? I've seen him go anywhere from over till like the end of the second. And I think that's an interesting range for him. So I'm interested to hear what you think about where he could go that sustains or raises his value.
Right. Yeah. And if you want to think of like a player that, he could become and develop, he's not going to be a year one star. I don't see that.
Right.
I think he's going to need a little bit of work. Think of like a Tyrell Williams, where he wasn't the top guy. And then, an injury had to happen, or, a role had to open up in a couple of years, and then he kind of got his shot. That's kind of how I envision it, not in terms of who he is, but in terms of like a career arc, if that makes sense. The one thing I want to say too, and you brought this up, which I think the ranges of where guys can get drafted, I think gets really mixed up, is because we're picking for fantasy, right? And these receptions and yards and whatever. NFL teams don't care about that at all. They care about a guy that can hopefully change the dynamic of their offense enough to affect defenses or open up other things. And so, that's why we have this big debate on like Henry Ruggs. Is Henry Ruggs going to be amazing? He's not a first round pick. They don't care about your rookie drafts. They care about what the difference is of, like, I'm sure, with Will Fuller. Will Fuller on the field for Houston was a touchdown difference than not having Will Fuller on the field. That matters. And so, I think, where these receivers go is going to be more determined on what NFL teams believe this guy, Hamler or Johnson or whoever they want, they think can change the dynamic of their offense or fit a role versus fantasy. That's why, we could have a guy in the third round we like more than a guy at the end of the first, potentially, which you don't want to do that historically. You want to go up with draft capital, but that's why it's going to be interesting. Man, in terms of a team and a fit, I think if Michael Pittman goes round 2, I think we have to move him up. I think if he goes round 3, we're going to keep him where he's at. I think if he goes day 3, we're going to move him down. I think that's in terms of just overall rankings right now, kind of how we have to do. Think of like Hakeem Butler. That's basically kind of how it's going to be. Same thing with him.
Right.
I know people say this stuff all the time, but man, and again, this is me as a Bears fan living in Wisconsin. I would love to see him in Green Bay. I think him, he would be better than all the other trash that they've had at wide receiver 2 for a while. They seem content not getting another Randall Cobb, and all they have is Sternberger. So there's a bunch of targets there. If someone can be halfway decent, they could get, and he wouldn't have the pressure. Think of like the Tyrell Williams, right? He didn't have the pressure because he had Keenan opposite him. He could have, Adams, and he could learn the role and then maybe eventually take over or get a sizable amount of targets.
I like that a lot. And I mean, Green Bay has become a favorite for any of these, early second round or mid second round wide receivers, outside of the top tier of guys. And I mean, I'm with you there on at least that landing spot. Now I really want to see who Green Bay actually ends up taking, because that player is going to get bumped up pretty hard. If, whether that's in the, Denzel Mims that I've seen in the back end of the first, or, other guys like, T Higgins or Jalen Reagor, and again, in the back end for the first or mid second or something like that for some of these guys, it's going to be interesting. I would like to see Michael Pittman there too. And I like the pick overall for that player in terms of his skill set in the middle of the second round. So we'll move on here. Third round, 306. And this is, the part where a bunch of these tight ends and quarterbacks are still there, and they're in these rankings, and they're just, trying to get you to pick them. But it's interesting. I've never seen Justin Herbert go this high. So that's interesting. He's always been a third round guy. Burrow and Tua were always
to go
second
number
round.
1, man.
Maybe that's what it is. The computer knows. And then Keyshawn Vaughn went at 302. That was your guy.
Yeah.
AGG, Keyshawn Vaughn, DPJ, Eno Benjamin, and Lynn Bowden were the first 5. Not looking at Antonio Gibson, Farland. In terms of quarterbacks, Hurts and Love. Tight ends is Bryant, Hunter Bryant. I guess Harrison Bryant's also there too. Right. Cole Kmet. We also have Devin Duvernay, Darrington Evans, Chase Claypool, Michael Pirine, Albert O. Keep going down. I mean, some of these other players right here. What are we looking at here at the 306?
To me, out of that group, if there's a guy that could hit, and that's what you're looking for. When you look early, right? I was looking for a little bit more safety. You don't want to bomb your first pick. Obviously you want them to be a superstar, but there's a middle ground between going from superstar to dud to this guy's going to be startable for 3 or 4 years. When you get third, fourth round, you're just home running it. That's all you're doing, because the odds of these guys being something are pretty slim to none. So my home run here is going to be Anthony McFarland. He's a guy I like. He's a guy I think that could hit huge potentially. He could also be nothing. But at this part in the draft, that's where you're going to go there. So interesting. So McFarland only has 2 years of data because he redshirted. He broke his leg and he's battled injuries. This year, it wasn't as good of numbers because he was battling injuries. But if you could go back 2 years ago and watch him against the Ohio State, man, it was awesome to watch. He was, and again, that's Ohio State. He was like the most athletic and best player on the field. And you're like, who is it? Looked like Chris Johnson out there against Ohio State. You're like, what is going on? And he just kept making, right. And again, some of those runs, there's pretty bad defense and they schemed it pretty well, but he continually made play after play. And then it wasn't just that game. He had another good game against Minnesota and he ended that season. You're like, man, McFarland, he could do it, And then this year didn't really come together, and Javon Leake, had a role too, but he was banged up, I think. I don't think he was really 100%. You could see when he ran, he had a shoulder issue, but I think McFarland gets knocked for his size. And you look at, Benjamin, you look at Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you look at J.K. Dobbins, they are all about the same size. So if you're concerned about Anthony McFarland, you have to be concerned about J.K. Dobbins, and people aren't, I don't think. And I think that's a little bit of that bias. And so I think that bias pushes him down in value. McFarland is a 4-4 guy. He catches the football. And the most important thing for a small guy is he runs hard in traffic. He's not scared, so he doesn't get the Reggie Bush syndrome where he's just trying to bounce outside all the time. He'll stay inside and he'll run hard. He had a bad offensive line at Maryland. So, I think that's why the numbers were down as well as the injuries. But I think at this point, you want a guy that can catch the ball, that's athletic, and has a shot being aggressive. And I think McFarland could be that guy. So
going off of the last thing you just said there, in terms of what you're looking for with your home run picks here, Ray Ray Garvin is a huge Darrington Evans fan, and also is a huge Antonio Gibson fan. And you know, I don't need to tell you anything about those two players. You already know. But what do you like about McFarland in terms of this home run shot that you didn't see or you don't see in Evans and Gibson that made you pick McFarland over those other two?
It's a great, because they're all three are super athletic players.
Mhm.
Gibson, I won't own at all because I don't know what position that he plays. Right now, I honestly think they're probably going to put him at running back, but I think he might be a better wide receiver. Lateral ability, I don't see often. He's still trying to figure it out, you know. And to me, like I've seen, as I said before, you know, I've seen too many Pattersons and Percy Harvins who they had to manufacture touches for, N'Keal Harry year one, and Tavon Austin. We can go on and on about guys that are like, they're athletic, they can return kicks. Okay, no kidding, you just catch it and run. But like everything else, let's you use your hands when you run your routes. Let's you stem at the top. Let's see you press a hole and then cut back. Like all those things aren't there. So with me, I don't see enough from Gibson to say, hey, this guy could really, really get a role.
Mhm.
Evans is just soft, man. He runs fast and he ran zone all the time. He presses and runs, presses and runs, presses and runs, and you know, beat up on some bad opponents. But man, if you had any penetration or they got any hand on him, he didn't do much at all. And he ran scared, not like McFarland. McFarland, good or bad, will run into a brick wall. Darrington Evans won't. And to me, Chris Johnson would run into a brick wall. That's the thing I think people missed on him. Like he was tough. He was a tough guy. And you have to be. It's the NFL. You're not going to convert and get tons of yards by dancing on the outside enough. You know, Devin Singletary is exactly what we're talking about. Devin Singletary is technically sound in everything that he does. He will run inside, and he's smart with how he cuts. He's not scared. He can do that because he doesn't have the athletic ability, you know? So to me, I think those two just don't have enough skill sets for me to take the gamble. They're going to have a whole lot, I think, go right for me or for them to be fantasy relevant.
So then my last question for McFarland, you know, with his size, you know, I guess, you know, he's smaller for a running back, but then also the injury history in college, like you said, you know, his freshman year and then also last year as well too. Is that a red flag for you for for him coming into the NFL, especially like you said, he's not scared to take that hit, but you know, over time, if he takes enough of those hits, you know, we kind of have like a Chris Carson thing going on here, where like just because of his style of play, he's, you know, more susceptible to injuries. Is that a red flag for you?
Gosh, Chris Carson doesn't care, does he? It's so like and you know what's interesting too of what we're kind of talking about that what you really want those guys to change their style a little bit to save their body, you know. I think Zach Moss did a little bit of that this last year. I think he because he's banged up a bunch. That's one of his red flags, right? ACL, and you could just see him. He's had multiple injuries. I saw him take on less punishment than years past, so it's kind of interesting to see him evolve a little bit. You would like that to happen for McFarland, but you don't know. And yes, it is a concern. But here we are at 3-6, and I don't know if these guys are ever going to be people that I start. So you know, we'll have a swing for the fence and hope that he holds up and you know he can get a roll.
Yeah, absolutely. And so speaking of swinging for the fences here, we are now at the final round, 406. You know, Jordan Love, Cole Kmet, Evans and Gibson, Duvernay, Colin Johnson, Jake Fromm, Albert O, Hunter Bryant, Josh Kelly, Isaiah Hodgins were the picks in between our Anthony McFarland. So at the 406 here, we're looking at Jalen Hurts, LaMichael P. Ryan, Chase Claypool, Adam Troutman, Quintez Cephas, Van Jefferson, Thaddeus Moss, Michael Warren, Harrison Bryant, DJ Dallas. I can keep going down here if you have a specific name in mind.
No, it's okay. I think I got the guy I want, and I hope DJ Dallas isn't watching this because he was on the Dynasty Nerds film pod a few weeks back. I'm going to pick another running back over you. Sorry, man. I'm going to go with Michael P. Ryan, who I think is a very underrated player in this class. Again, because he's not uber athletic. And oddly enough, he just wasn't used a ton at Florida. I mean, they had Jordan Scarlett. He played all 4 years. Jordan Scarlett was there a couple of years. But he does everything that you like. He has good size. He lost a little bit of weight this last year, which helps him quickness-wise. He's a solid athlete, catches the football. He caught, I think 30 some passes this last year. Runs inside. I think that he's patient. He does everything I think that you like. Is he ever going to be a star? No. But could he be, a fill-in starter, a one-year starter? Could he be like a Jordan Howard light potentially? Sure, he could be. And in the fourth round, I think that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, I don't hate it. There's a lot of these players you're just throwing, darts in a dark room at a wall. It's just, especially because I feel like, we talk a lot about this class and how great it is at the top, that first round, even, into the mid second round and stuff. But after that, it gets into a lot of major question marks and a lot of I don't knows, especially before the draft. We don't know landing spot. Some of these guys might not even be drafted, which doesn't even make them worth, being drafted in rookie drafts at this point either. But I mean, there's somebody has to, fall in love with some of these guys. And if it's Lemichael Pirine, depending on where he goes, he could be a valuable handcuff, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said,
Addison. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. He actually caught 40 receptions last year.
Oh yeah, 40. Okay,
I just checked. So I mean, he that's in his skill set. That's in his repertoire. So, if he's able to capitalize on that and stumbles into a full-time role in the fourth round, you could do a lot worse, I think.
Yep. That's my theme. You can see all the picks I have there. All three guys can catch the football, and that's important in today's game. And that's why, Nick Chubb, despite all of the yards, doesn't have humongous, RB1 because he doesn't catch as many passes.
Which is unfortunate. We don't need to get into Nick Chubb here because I'm a huge Nick Chubb.
No, I like him too. I also think it's unfortunate because Nick Chubb, freshman and part of sophomore year, is a very different player than we see right now. He's still good right now, but he was special then.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so that was our first 4-round mock draft. We're going to do a second one here out of the 12 spot. This is going to be completely new because we haven't done 11 or 12. So this will be the first one here kind of on that edge. And we're going to get some new players going here. So I'm excited to see who you pick because I haven't really talked about any of the players who I think are going to go at the ends here.
Oh, Edwards-Helaire isn't there. Dang it.
So let's see. Jonathan Taylor, Jerry Jeudy, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, CeeDee Lamb, Cam Akers, Jalen Reagor, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Justin Jefferson, Zach Moss, Henry Ruggs. So 112, T. Higgins, Denzel Mims, Laviska, Michael Pittman still there, Brandon Ayuk, Brian Edwards, Keyshawn Vaughn, KJ Hamler, any of the quarterbacks, but I know you're not a quarterback guy, but I'm just going to say it. So what are we looking at here? 112.
We're going tight end. No, I'm kidding. Right now I'd be torn between Higgins and Mims. And I think both are, you can't really go wrong here. I think both of them have things that you like. But I'm going to go with Higgins. I think he's getting really, really looked over in this class. For a big guy, he does a lot of things you really like that you're like, man, I can't believe he does that. Because with a big guy, oh man, Vaughn went right before me. He attacks defenders' leverage when he runs routes, and that's exactly what you need. Like Jerry Jeudy is special because he attacks a defender's leverage when he runs routes, and he threatens them to open up or completely back out or move in a way that creates more space for him. That just makes sense, right? You have to create your space for, to get targets and to be open. And Higgins does some of that. Now, again, he's not as quick as Jeudy. No kidding. He's 6'4", but he does those things. And you're like, man, a lot of big guys don't do that stuff. In fact, I don't see Justin Jefferson always doing that stuff either, who I think people love. And he's smaller than Higgins is. And Higgins has great hands, wins above the rim. I think he knows who he is. He's not going to dance. He's going to get what he can with yardage. But yeah, I think Higgins could be a wide receiver 1 for an NFL team. I think he has low end wide receiver 1 potential in fantasy, which, that's going to be a huge dream. But I think he's a really good player that because he didn't run the combine or he's not running a 4.4, guess what? Not many people run 4.4s. People are looking over him. And I think he's a good football player.
I'm wondering, my only problem with T. Higgins is I'm wondering if with the way that the NFL is evolving, over these past few years, NFL teams are trying to get faster. Generally, that means you're getting a little bit smaller. We're seeing more of these wide receiver ones being more 6'1", 6'2", and we're getting away from the 6'4", Julio Jones or Des Bryant-y type wide receiver archetypes. And I'm wondering if that is going to in any way inhibit T. Higgins from, becoming the player that I think, I think that he can become, because, I saw it at Clemson. He was a fantastic player. And I think he's, like you said, I agree, he's being overlooked. But I'm wondering if that is going to be a problem for him, because, he doesn't have that quickness or that speed. He's just, he is what he is. We know what he is. And I think the NFL is moving away from what he is. But I've seen him go in the latest Matt Miller mock draft. He had the Texans taking him with their first pick in the second round, which, post Brandon Cooks trade now, but that would still be a really interesting spot for him, especially with that draft cap.
No, I don't disagree with you, because the NFL is moving away from that. I think that they prefer, instead of using their body and shielding defenders, they want more separation. That's what they're valuing more of, which is interesting, because of more and more rules against pass interference. You would think that it doesn't matter. You could have the bigger guy. Yeah, it does worry me some, but you still see some of those guys succeed. For instance, the guy right here, Cortland Sutton, right? Still 6'3", 220, and he, is getting it done. And there's still a role for them. And I think that they have to be able to move and run routes well enough in order to get it done. And I think he can. That may have been some of the concern with Hakeem Butler last year, where he didn't run enough routes by attacking the defender. And I think that's a huge reason why N'Keal Harry might struggle, because he doesn't run very good routes.
That's a good point. You got to be able to do that in the NFL. And I do agree. Higgins can do that. Higgins can be the guy that can win in the NFL and do that with his size too. So I say this every single time, but I just really want the NFL draft to be here so we know where these people land. All right. So we are now here 212. The rest of the second round, Laviska, Joe Burrow went at 202. There's always somebody takes Burrow really early in at least one of the two drafts I do with everybody. Same with Justin Hopkins. He goes somewhere in the mid-second too. AJ, yeah, go ahead.
No, I said, what the heck? That's just weird. That's a weird spot.
Yeah. I don't know. The one time when I did this with Jesse the first time, Burrow went 101. And he went, "Are you sure this isn't Superflex?" And I was like, "I'm pretty sure," because then Tua went like late second. And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "So you're in a league where the guy who had the 101 is either a diehard LSU fan or the only college game he watched was the national championship game," and then he just had Joe Burrow's name in his head the whole entire time.
That's hilarious.
AJ Dillon, Denzel Mims, Tua, Brian Edwards, Michael Pittman, Eno Benjamin, Keyshawn Vaughn, and Donovan Peoples-Jones went at 211. So 212, Brandon Ayuk, KJ Hamler, Justin Herbert, Tyler Johnson, Antonio Gibson, Anthony McFarland, AGG, Jalen Hurts, Hunter Bryant. Man, I really hope you pick my guy, but I know you're not. But
I'm not going to pick him. I'm sorry, man. And it's a little bit more of a size thing for me. I think Hamler is going to be a better NFL player than fantasy, because I think that he's going to give a new element to an offense, Actually, I was having this conversation with a friend today. I think that KJ Hamler would be a great fit for Green Bay. And I know we already talked about Green Bay, but like in terms of having a guy that can threaten vertically, that's been the biggest thing that's been missing in that offense. I know MVS is a guy that can run deep, but he can't catch. Is that they need somebody to open up, because Adams doesn't have speed. Jimmy Graham didn't have speed. Sternberger, he doesn't have speed. Have someone that threatens vertically. And that way the defense has to stretch vertically to open up everything else horizontally. Because if not, the safeties just stay there, and it's tough for Rodgers. Who actually had the most he had the worst bad pass percentage in the NFL last year, which is interesting.
Really?
Yeah. Him and Brady, Stafford, Winston, and then Josh Allen were in the top 5. So,
fun fact.
Yeah. So, because I debate a lot about Josh Allen, so that came through. But I'm going to take Brandon Ayuk here.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can't believe he's here in the late second. I think he's a good player. I don't know how great he can be, but he has, and again, he's also a JUCO transfer. That's the other thing too, is that I think he's a little bit less of a finished product than some of these other guys who had 3 or 4 years in college, that, when he'll get a little bit more coaching that way, but he's dynamic. He is explosive. I know what the 40-yard dash time is, but when I watch tape, I think he's more explosive than that. And he's got those long arms, which is something you really look for in terms of catching outside of his frame. And the one thing too is that he's a confident player, because you'll see players that run and they're running traffic and they kind of run scared, or they're like, I'm going to get tackled. He's confident. He's like, I'm running as hard as I can here, and we'll see if anybody catches me in traffic. And I love that. Will Fuller did that. Again, I know he's not the same level in terms of speed, but I really respect that. And I think that confidence can carry over in helping a player overcome anything else. And, but I think he does run decent routes. I think he does, attack defenders a little bit. I don't think he's phenomenal, but I think he's a pretty good player. At 212, I'm pretty happy with that one.
So my only thing with Ayuk, and I'm wondering if this is a red flag for you as well, is because, you said that is a JUCO transfer. Mm-hmm. And because of that, he only has 2 years at Arizona State. And that 2018 year was not, really fantastic at all. He only had 33 receptions for 474 yards and 3 touchdowns, but then broke out, last year was 65 for almost 1,208. And because of that, his analytical profile obviously is not going to, be very nice to him in terms of breakout age and everything like that. So, but I mean, in terms of, from your perspective, is that something that might not translate well into the NFL, or that he might be a slow learner at the beginning because he didn't really do it in college, and he had that the JUCO stuff going on at the beginning of his college career, and then slow going into Arizona State. He finally broke out, but then now he's going into the NFL, much harder competition. He's going to have to learn a lot really fast to be able to succeed. Is that going to be a red flag for you?
Mm-hmm. Not really for me, because I'm not as big of a stats guy as you are in terms of breakout age and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But I get the concern for sure. I mean, you love a guy to come out and be, Mr. 5-star and, start freshman year, like Sammy Watkins had a crazy freshman year at Clemson. Mm-hmm. But you look at Alvin Kamara, started at Alabama, went JUCO, came back. You look at Steve Smith, you look at Chad Johnson. There's a lot of guys that went JUCO route and then broke out. And the one thing I kind of like about guys like this, they got a little chip, Oh yeah, mm-hmm. You didn't think of me, that Maurice Jones-Drew, he was number 32. He says that's because 32 teams passed on me. I want a guy that's got a little bit of a chip, and I think that they can have a little bit more of that because they went junior college and they were humbled, and they had mm-hmm. to, do a little bit more. But I definitely get the point, and we'll see. And again, like you said, we'll see what NFL teams say. But in terms of film, I think he's fantastic. I think he's better than some of the guys that got picked ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against it. Just analytically, I'm the analytics guy here, so I would rather look at that profile. But I trust you, and I trust what you're saying. And I think he'll have draft capital as well too, which is the most important thing. Mm-hmm. So that'll be important there. 312 here, Nick. We're looking at guys like Antonio Gibson, Hunter Bryant, Cole Kmet, Lynn Bowden. LaMichael Pirine is there too. After again a variable third round with Herbert and Jalen Hurts going, and then Albert O going, and Jordan Love, and then the rest of the wide receivers and running backs. So Albert O is so interesting. I love him so much because he's so boom or bust, but I don't know where to take him.
Right. for the sake of everyone, I won't take LaMichael Pirine here.
But you would.
I don't know. Yeah, probably I would, honestly. Yeah. But let me take a different guy here. Is that Hunter Bryant?
Hunter Bryant.
Yeah. Let's go Hunter Bryant. And normally I wouldn't take tight end this early, but we're 312, which is basically a 4th round pick. And there's something that I just like about tight ends that are move tight ends that are a little small, that give me this Jordan Reed. They give me this, what's his name? Hernandez. They fit a role, and a team that's going to draft him is going to put him in a different role than Cole Kmet. because Bryant's blocking ability isn't with what everyone else is. But
Right.
he's savvy. He's got good hands. If he's going to get drafted, he's going to be Irv Smith, where it's like, hey, this guy's going to be a pass catcher. And that's all I care about in fantasy. I don't care about your blocking ability. And again, will that make you on the field a little bit more? Maybe. But if it puts you on the field a little bit more, you might be blocking like OJ Howard instead of catching like Cameron Brate. So if he does get a decent draft capital, he might have a role of being that tight end 2 in fantasy with maybe a tight end 1 upside. And at this spot, who knows? But yeah, I kind of like those smaller guys that are athletic and they're smart. He got banged up a little bit at Washington. That's one concern, but I think he's athletic enough, in my opinion.
Do you at all weigh in production in terms of tight end when you're scouting tight ends? I'm just curious.
I mean, you would love to see it, but tight end's so tough. You know what I mean? Because that depends on the system. That depends on the quarterback. That depends on, if their O-line is trash, they have to stay in a block. It just varies so much. When you have Iowa, who is like tight end U lately, and Penn State, who's tight end U, and then you have these other ones that can't develop anyone for anything. And then you have Thaddeus Moss, who's, basically a wide receiver, it's like, they could be anything. So it really depends, I think, on the system. So I don't really shame them for it, but I just kind of watch how they use their hands, how they run their routes, what they do when they can get the football, that's why a couple of years ago, I can't remember the tight end off the top of my head. I really liked, I think it was Dalton Schultz for Stanford.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Because in the few receptions I saw of him, I'm like, he's got some decent traits here, So like, 4th round, I might take a shot at him. So I think that's a really tough question.
Yeah. And it's something that even, me from an analytical standpoint, I still don't know how to value production in terms of tight ends. It's not the same as wide receivers or running backs, and of course, that's what I'm looking at, and you're looking at skill sets on film. You know what you're looking for and everything like that. But so that's where I'm not questioning Hunter Bryant, because he did have that production last year, right? And it was at Washington too, right? It was a Pac-12 versus when you consider the other Bryant, Harrison Bryant, who led his team in receiving, but that was over down at Florida Atlantic, and we're kind of questioning the competition level there, even though I'm not a huge competition guy. I mean, obviously there's. Anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. But, he showed that. He showcased his receiving ability. Harrison Bryant showcased his receiving ability there too, which makes me wonder if he would be more successful as a pass catcher in the NFL more so than Hunter Bryant or Thaddeus Moss or some of these other guys who weren't really doing it so much in college and might be because, they were asked to block more or they just don't have that skill set really or anything like that. But it is hard because it is tight end, and a lot of these tight ends are not going to be the focal point of their offenses in college, nor will they probably will be in the NFL as well too. It's a rare thing whenever you're a Travis Kelce or a George Kittle. That's why there's only, just those two, and even Zach Ertz, I guess you could throw in there as well too. But after that, it's just a bunch of guys who are playing in their roles. So
and that's why I think there's a big debate too of a small school guy, but a small school guy that played and got tons of reps or targets, for 3 years versus a guy that is a backup at Alabama. Like, who's the better player? The guy that got the experience, the guy that has the pedigree, maybe had better coaching. Like, it's very, very good debate.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they end up going. All the tight ends, I think, where they end up going in relation to each other is going to be really interesting to see, because it's not an elite tight end class. Everybody knows that, but I feel like a lot of these guys are all very similar in that they have the same kind of ceilings or floors, and it's really just going to be based on
which is low, right? We're all talking low ceilings.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's just going to be based on where they go entirely, basically, which is interesting. So last pick here, 412. And your boy LaMichael Pirine is still there.
My boy. Blue, my boy's there.
Yeah. But we also got Van Jefferson, Michael Warren, DJ Dallas, Gabriel Davis, Courtney Davis, KJ Hill is down there too. Mr. Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm going to take a guy just off the radar just for the fun of having a conversation to kind of put him on someone's radar. I think that's,
sure.
Useful.
Mm-hmm.
You have to scroll down a little bit here. We'll see if he's on the list. He's at
Let's
the
see
combine.
it.
Okay. And we're going to go with Stephen Guidry, wide receiver, Mississippi State. And he's a guy that was a JUCO guy, was a huge, he's not even on the list.
I don't know. I don't think I passed him.
That's amazing.
Oh no, I don't think he is.
Nice. Am I doing it first, I guess? I mean, it's 412.
Yeah,
you know.
100%.
He's a guy that was a huge, huge JUCO recruit that went to Mississippi State and didn't really have a great, career there. He put up some decent numbers, but came to the combine. Actually, let me pull this up just so I have everything accurate here.
I'm going to slide in LaMichael Pirine for you.
That's fine. Well, yeah, you have to finish it up, don't you?
Yep.
So, I mean, he had 440, 387 yards the last 2 years, nothing crazy, right? 23.2 yards per reception his junior year, a little bit less his senior year. Made plays, but against Mississippi State, right? Are they this powerhouse? We're just talking about that, right? I mean, are they going to LSU it and you're going to get 100 receptions? No, I don't think the quarterback's not good enough. They're not set up for that. So I don't know how big of an opportunity that he had, but he's 6'3", 201. And at that size, he ran a 4.47 at the combine. Okay. And on film, when you see him, he's got that. And this is just something that I love. When you're big and you got this like Gumby flexibility to you. If people don't know who Gumby is, I'm probably dating myself. This big green guy that, can really bend. But when you're that flexible, when you're Martavis Bryant flexible, how about that for an example? Okay. Similar that way. Again, Martavis is much more explosive. When you're like that, I'm like, man, you can do a lot more things on the field. And you see it in spurts with Guidry, with the athleticism, with the size, with the JUCO recruiting. Man, at 412, I'm going to take a gamble on a guy like that. Again, am I ever going to start a 412 guy? Probably not. But man, why not swing for a home run?
So Stephen Guidry.
Okay. He was at the combine. How about that? So
that's good. Okay. It's interesting that he's not on this list if he went to the combine then, but
you better write Fantasy Pros and say, hey, I'm trying to mock draft and this guy's not even on the list.
He's not on MFL
either. That's amazing.
That's funny. Stephen Guidry. Okay, so that's the pick there at 412, just to put him on all of y'all's radar. But I slotted in LaMichael Pirine for you.
I like Pirine too, so I'm good with it.
All righty. So, hey, that was it. That was 2 4-round mock drafts. They're both looking pretty good here. This is the one out of the 106. Edwards-Helaire, Pittman, Anthony McFarland, and LaMichael Pirine in the 4th round. I like this one a lot. I mean, I don't have a problem with a lot of any of these guys. Like, I don't have a problem with either of your twos. I didn't have a problem with any of the other 3's 2 mocks too. I just, I'm more so here because I want to hear what you guys think about these rookies and where you kind of value them. So it's really interesting to me, and it's very informative and educational to be able to get to hear from your guys' perspectives, especially from film guys and from people who are dedicated, like as you are, to the film and everything, to be able to give your input on this. So I really like this one. And the 12 one that we just did was pretty good too. T. Higgins.
Yeah, it's a very time consuming and lonely grind, which I don't know how the numbers grind is for you guys, but man, when you're watching, 8 tapes, 5 to 10 tapes, whatever, on a guy, and you're like, I got to rewatch this play over, it gets to be a little bit of a grind, but it's, the thing is like, you can stare at numbers and make them say what you want. You can start filming and what you want. You have to do what is the most honest, I think, and overcome our own biases, But overall, the more information that you get, this show, everything, it gives you a full picture on a guy. And that's the best part, I think, is that we're all just trying to figure it out. And if you leave it a blank canvas, you have a more honest eval versus like, well, I don't really like Alabama. So I'm not really, you can't do that.
Absolutely. So, hey, Nick, thank you so much for coming on and doing both of these drafts with me. It was a pleasure to get to talk to you, get to do some rookie talk. And why don't you tell all the people out there where they can find you, some of the work, some projects that you got going on, everything like that.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I was excited when you reached out to me to do this because, I knew we know each other. I know you
Mhm.
do some good video stuff, and I'm like mock drafts. Yeah, drafting. This is fun. So yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm on the Twitter. Always debating. I always want people to think of a new perspective. I think that's always important. But at underscore Nick Whalen there, rating at 4 for 4. Dynasty Nerds, we always do the film thing on Wednesday nights. I'll be there for that. And then the graduates, which hopefully is coming out next week. That is going to be this class of guys, my report, which I got going on over here, which hopefully be finished up this weekend. And then the Devi report, which I was telling him before the podcast. I can't remember how many years I've been doing this. 7, I don't even know. It's been a lot of years of doing this.
Mhm.
That'll be coming out eventually. And the most exciting thing is that I am starting a new website to house all of this stuff, as well as a life coaching business. Because as we were talking about it before the podcast, I think people matter more than fake football, even though we're passionate about this. And if I can help people, I think it'd be great. So I'm starting a new business there, which it's nickwhalen.org. It is not open yet. I'm hoping that the website gets released next week, which then this stuff will get released. But
Nice.
if it's not, then just check out my Twitter. I'll let you guys know. But yeah, so I got only a few things going on at the moment.
Just a few. Yeah, no big deal. So definitely all you guys out there watching this on YouTube, make sure that you go and check out everything that Nick's got going on. It's fantastic stuff, amazing resources. That Debbie report's been insane. I don't know how long you've been doing it again either, but it's insane every single year, and the amount of work that you put into that is ridiculous.
No,
So yeah,
I appreciate it, man.
it's phenomenal. So definitely go check that out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like the video if you like this one. Leave a comment down below if you agree or disagree with any of Nick's picks, or just want to chat some rookie talk too, or hit Nick up on Twitter and you can yell at him that way. It doesn't matter to me. And please, if you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe for more awesome content from DLF. We got a lot more stuff in the works to be able to get a lot more content and information out to you guys through the YouTube video platform from DLF. So please subscribe if you are not, and we will catch you guys next week with another episode of Drafting Lessons. See ya.